small story. So I almost didn't get into this event at all because I got stuck in the wrong line. It was utter chaos. People didn't know where they were supposed to be. All the press and bloggers were already inside. Then I finally figured out where I was supposed to be. I cut in front of probably 700 people. It was absolutely stressful. After a cute but rather cheesy announcement, I finally got to play with the phone, so all that stress actually had some goodness after all. As for the look and feel of the device, it's still plastic. It's got a non-textured glossy back that's got an interesting dimension to it. They call it white frost. You can see it has a little bit of a pattern on there. I really liked it actually. It's something new, something different. As compared to the Galaxy S3, they changed around the position of the flash. Also, they changed the position of the speaker to the bottom. I would have preferred if they kept it at the top where they had it before because I felt like it had less chance of being obstructed by your hand when you were holding it. The buttons have the exact same look and appearance as always. The funny thing is that the sides of this phone look exactly like metal. It's uncanny how much it looks like metal, but it's not. It's plastic. It's a little bit disappointing. Samsung, why didn't you just use metal this time? It would have been so much more premium. Same position for the home buttons and for the capacitive buttons. At the top, we have something new. To the very far right is the 2-megapixel front-facing camera. Then if you saw that little blinking light, that's actually an infrared emitter. And coupled to just the right of that is an infrared sensor. So coupled together, those two make the proximity sensor. You know, when you're making a phone call, you hold the phone up to your face. It's going to send out an infrared beam from the emitter. It's going to hit your face, bounce off your face, and then it's going to hit the infrared sensor. The infrared sensor is going to say, "Oh, there's something there," and it shuts off the screen so that you don't disturb anything on the display while making a phone call. But to the very far left, you've got something new. It looks like it's another infrared sensor that they're calling an infrared gesture sensor. It helps to detect movement. That way you can brush your hand up and down the display without touching it, and you can scroll through pictures, you can go up and down on web pages, and it actually works surprisingly well. On the bottom, we have a microphone for voice calls, and then there's a little bit of a ridge. It's actually a bezel. I really like that they've done this. I like the design. It's kind of protecting the Gorilla Glass 3 on the device. Yes, it's Gorilla Glass 3. I felt it with my thumbnail. It does protrude a little bit, but then I thought it was a little funny that the glass is still protruding slightly. So I'm hoping that if it hits this bezel, it will protect the corners of your display and not crack it as easily as before. But if it falls flat on the slightly protruding glass, I hope we're not goners. On the top, we have a headphone jack, a microphone, and an infrared blaster so that you can control your TVs and whatnot. That seems to be a very popular trend. I was completely shocked at how light this phone is. It feels really great in hand. It feels like a Galaxy S3 that's a lot lighter, and it's also incredibly thin. It feels like you're texting on a credit card when you're typing on this thing. There's really almost nothing there. Now, getting into the display, first thing you need to know, it's on full brightness right now. It is not as bright as the Galaxy Note 2, it's not as bright as the Galaxy S3, but it is really a gorgeous display. First thing I noticed while poking through menus is that the white point on this device is really warm, really pleasant to look at. It doesn't have a pink tint, doesn't have a green tint. I was very pleased. I managed to get up close and personal with my crazy-ass CX760. You can see the left-hand side is 720p Note 2, right-hand side 1080p S4. Make sure to have 1080p video quality as you're watching this on YouTube so you can see the pixel arrangement. This is actually an interesting pentile arrangement. Yes, it's pentile, but since it's 1080p technically, it is very, very pixel dense, and it's very hard to see whether it's actually pentile or not. I ended up having a very hard time actually seeing this configuration, A, until I'm looking at it at this level, and B, unless you're really turning it and trying to see, you can see that something is not quite 1080p like LCD screens, but it looks fantastic. This is the Xperia Z, by the way, which is 1080p RGB stripe, which basically means the pattern of the pixels themselves are 3 subpixels per pixel, and it's lined up in a stripe type arrangement. So red, green, blue, 1 pixel, red, green, blue, another pixel. So for non-pentile displays, you've got every pixel having 3 subpixels. So those 3 subpixels at different intensities make every single color that you're seeing. Looking on the right here is the Galaxy S3 720p pen tile. You can see that every pixel is only 2 subpixels. It goes green, red, green, blue, green, red, green, blue. So every single pixel is missing either a red pixel or a blue pixel. Now, as far as I can understand, Samsung makes pen tile displays because it's very hard to manufacture AMOLED displays with high pixel densities. The problem with looking at the Galaxy S3 display is that it's obvious that it's not very pixel dense. You can see there's a lot of black space in between. It looks very hatchy, barn doorish. It just doesn't look like an HD display. So Samsung knew that they needed to figure out a way to create an AMOLED panel with a very high pixel density. A market competitor is born! 1080p AMOLED display. Now, it's hard to see the exact shape of the pixels, but if you can see where it says S4 at the bottom, this is from a Chinese tech site, IT168. This is actually a leak before the release of the S4. They were right, and this is accurate. So they are either diamond-shaped pixels now or hexagon-shaped pixels. The advantage of changing the shape of the pixels is because now you can see that they're able to smush them even closer together. So it's still pen tile. You've got a red, then a green, then a green, then a blue. But instead of being in a line type configuration or a hatchy configuration, it's squashed, making these little diamonds, and it's incredibly dense now. Still pen tile-ish, but dense, and it looks great. I really can't tell the difference. Now, the point to all this is that the text still looks incredibly sharp. I'm not seeing any ragged or jaggy edges, and images are still entirely gorgeous, beautiful. Unless you're really staring at it, it's very hard to see that this is pen tile. Lately, I've been hearing reports that this is the darkest AMOLED panel that they've been able to manufacture so far. Usually, when you have AMOLED panels, yes, black means that all the pixels are off, but there still was some light leaking, and that would affect the intensity of the black. So this is supposed to be very little light leak, if any at all. I need to get one of these guys and test it in the dark and use a camera and have the shutter speed at a very, very low rate so I can try to absorb any bit of photons that are being emitted. Putting that aside, it looks like this display is revealing some black clipping. Black clipping is not a good thing. Granted, we are in ambient lighting, and you're not going to be able to see from 21 on the right-hand column all the way down to 0 on the left-hand column, but you should be at least seeing some of the numbers on that left-hand side column. You're not seeing any at all. Even when I look at it and I squint, and I have of course the brightness is on maximum and all the display settings are on standard, but you can't see anything, and that's very concerning. When you are watching a movie with black clipping, just say that you are watching a dark scene and there's a person talking and there's a lot of things that are setting in shadow in the background. There's a lot of contrast. There's a lot of gradients in gray. But then with black clipping, just all you see is the person's face and everything else just looks black. There's no definition in that scene anymore. So that's what I'm concerned with this image here, because honestly, I can see from 21 all the way down to 11. 11 is the number that's on the very top. But anything on that left-hand side column is entirely blacked out. So that means that anything that's darker than 11 is just going to be gone. It's just going to be black, and that is so incredibly frustrating. Hopefully it's not as bad as I'm actually thinking and seeing here. I need to get a hold of a device so that I can take it and really give a good look at it in the dark. But really, with a contrast ratio this profound with these new devices, there's no reason at all for black clipping. Now, I only had limited time with this device, but the setting that interested me most is Adapt Display. So basically, if you're looking at something, it doesn't matter what it is, it can be a picture, website, video, it will adapt depending on what that content is. So I'm hoping that if there really is any trouble with black clipping, that Adapt Display will fix that, because the other settings I don't think are going to do much for you. As for a size comparison to my Galaxy Note 2, it's still a little shrimp compared to the Galaxy Note 2. It's got a 4.99-inch screen, but the thing is deceivingly small, and of course, somewhat wafer thin. Noting some changes to TouchWiz and Jelly Bean 4.2.2, I really like what they've done. They took the settings menu and subdivided everything into clear, distinct categories, connections, my device, accounts, and more. Now, whenever I'm looking for a setting, I don't have to go filing through all kinds of crazy things. There were settings under sound settings for phone calls that I had never seen before, and now everything is easily accessible all in one place. Also, near and dear to Vanilla Jelly Bean 4.2.x, we've got the quick toggle area that you can easily get to from the status bar. You can turn on and off just about anything. Samsung has just made their hub about 5 times more appealing. Before, I didn't pay attention to those annoying little game icon hub or music icon hub or whatever. I don't even know, you see, because I never looked. But now it's got style. You've got a game store. You've also got this interesting view that looks, I swear, just like Windows Phone. You can swipe back and forth. You can get to books. You can get to videos. You can get to music. Everything is all in one place, and it's very easy to use. You've also got a nice search option for the entire store hub. It's like a real concise store now. I might actually buy stuff from Samsung. It's like they copied Microsoft Windows Phone store, because if they would have copied iTunes, Apple would have sued them. I can't tell you how many times I've found muck and guck on my fingers and have not wanted to touch my phone screen, so I found these next features actually pretty useful. If you get a consistent and accurate distance away from the screen, you can actually use kind of like an air view of anything like icons, pictures. It took me a little bit of time to get it down right, but once you get used to doing it, it's actually fairly easy and somewhat reliable. It's not a full gesture navigation system though, because once you open a preview of what's in a certain category, you can't actually execute the video that you want to see. You actually have to click at that point. I do like though that it gives me a feeling that I don't have to commit to looking at anything. Just say I don't want to have an email that's actually read yet. I can do an air view, go over it and see really what's inside that message. So that's actually really nice. Same applies for text messaging. You can get an idea of what's inside that text message without actually having to open it. Sweetheart, see, I never actually had a chance to read the message that you sent me, so I didn't know. My favorite preview feature is scrolling during video. So just say that you want to know what's ahead in the particular clip and you're not sure. Finally, there is a solution for that. You don't have to skip ahead and have to go and skip back to where you previously were. You can just get a preview of what's happening without touching it and then return right to where you were. So this is supposed to work with gloves and fingertips and just about anything else, right? Mm-hmm. I meant fingernails. I don't have anything to emulate a glove. We have Sal here, and he's going to demonstrate how this works with a glove. Back and forth, or something. Oh, it recognized. Come on, we got it. No, maybe. Okay.
It's not really a glove, though.
No.
You know, a glove would probably work better than what shirt did.
Probably. What's the point if you can't get your t-shirt to actually operate like a glove? Not impressed. I was completely fascinated that this is the first time I've seen a thermometer in a phone. I don't know why it's taken this long. I don't know where it was actually reading from. They said it was coming from where it said 36, but clearly it was not near freezing in the event. It was more like 72 room temperature-ish. But now I'll know if it's too hot to leave my chocolate in the car. Some comments on Smart Scroll. It doesn't use your eyes to actually look up and down the screen to make it scroll. It just pays attention to the fact that your eyes are looking at the screen. And then you can tilt the screen to get the page to scroll either up or down or to do whatever you'd like. It's kind of gimmicky. I had a hard time using it at some points. It would just keep going. But once I got a handle on it, it was like having a magical power. So it was pretty cool. I was very appreciative of all the people that were helping me at the event to look at the device, but then I got to a point where he kept taking it from me and I didn't get to look at all the camera features except for this one, but at least I find it interesting. The idea is to not always have to be the cameraman. So you can see the little stamp I'm waving to myself. That means I can look at myself from the front-facing camera while you're taking a picture of everything from the back. You can put many little different cutesy frames. There's a little heart. You can use this function during video, which I find to be really nice if you're filming your family but filming yourself still talking to your loved one. And then you can also use it in picture mode so that you can actually be in the picture among all the other smiling faces. That way you can be the cameraman without being stuck as the cameraman. I love how you can drag this frame around to where you want it. I also like that you can drag to increase the image size to your liking, although you can't rotate it, unfortunately. The photo album feature is really nice. You can put all your photos together in a particular album, scroll through it. The biggest part of the idea is a selling point where you can actually fabricate a real album that you are able to send away and have printed into a hard copy. It's kind of funny though because there's an application for the iPad that's been able to do this for quite some time. I didn't use it then and I honestly won't use it now. I was honestly a little bit disappointed with this feature because I wanted it to work more like the HTC One Zoe. I wanted to have some live views or something. You do have the option to take pictures and to record audio into those pictures, but it's not something that's available in this application. So I feel that this application is just a gimmick to make money. But what isn't?
Puedo ir al baño.
What did you do? But you tilted it.
The famous phrase, "May I go to the bathroom?" Something that you might need in a foreign country, or at least to ask where the bathroom is. This is Samsung's newest voice recognition app to translate in real time. I took it upon myself to try it out.
So I want to go to the bathroom. That's close enough, but it's a little loud in here anyway.
As expected, the app had a little bit of trouble recognizing what we were saying with the noise volume that was at this event. The star part of this app is to speak back what you had translated.
And it's coming out the back there, right?
Yeah,
so.
I'm gonna do Spanish first.
Okay.
Quisiera ir al baño.
Okay.
I would like to go to the bathroom.
So if you're in a noisy restaurant or sitting in the middle of a noisy city trying to ask some passerby what the heck something means or where to go in their own native language, don't count on it actually being loud enough. We did have it at max volume. That was probably my one complaint. Another nice feature of S-Translate is that not only can you translate in real time like I showed you, but you can also compose emails and text messages and then translate those. So quite useful, and hopefully you won't get stuck in the middle of nowhere without being able to talk to anybody. But if you get stuck in the middle of nowhere without a network connection, you can still look into your catalog of 3,000 pre-programmed phrases that don't need an internet connection to access in 9 separate languages. The translatable languages include French, Latin, American Spanish, German, Italian, Chinese, Japanese, and Brazilian Portuguese. And don't forget to include English. And if your particular language is not included, you're screwed. No, not really. Just get a pocket translator. Now, in terms of benchmarks, I don't want to get into the full results until I have final hardware or get final confirmation about which processors are in what and at what frequency and this and that, because there's just so many discrepancies right now and nobody knows for sure exactly anything. What I will say is that I have the Snapdragon 600 version clocked at 1.9 gigahertz. The GPU should be Adreno 320, although I'm not sure what the frequency is. Even with being 1080p, the results for Egypt HD on GL Benchmark are really good. They're twice as good as what you'll be getting in the Galaxy S3, both versions, the Exynos and the Snapdragon. And as compared to some benchmarks with the Adreno 320 on the Xperia Z, I'm seeing that this is doing several frames better. It must just be at a higher frequency or something. When looking at the triangle throughput and fill rates on the Xperia Z from this video I found from Digital Life, thank you for that, you can see that mine is actually much better. I want an explanation. Maybe it's just a higher frequency. I don't know. The confusing part is the 1.6 gigahertz octa-core Exynos 5 variant. What we are seeing arguments of is it's the A15 cores, the 4 A15 cores that are 1.6 gigahertz, or is it the 4 A7 cores that are 1.6 gigahertz? And Nantech was led to believe that 1.2 gigahertz for the A15s would actually be pretty reasonable. And for everybody else, they're just like, well, A15s should be 1.6, otherwise you're going to have the Snapdragon version at 1.9 gigahertz being more powerful. Then you have the argument saying that yes, 1.2 is going to be totally fine for the A15s. It's fair. So I don't know. I'm just going to wait until I hear the correct information. Samsung doesn't even seem to want to release the full details. It just overall seems they're having trouble producing the octa-core versions. So now I must bid you farewell. I know there's a lot of things that I did not get to cover. I only had so much time with this device. I hoped I had covered a lot of things that most people probably wouldn't have gotten to. So I will be back with you during the hour-long review of this device. I don't know which one I'm going to be reviewing yet, but hopefully it'll be the octa-core version. So thank you, everybody. This has been Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Again, I thank everybody so much for your support for helping me get to the Samsung event. It was awesome, stressful, but awesome, and I hope that this really paid off for you. By the way, this is Granny Smith in slow motion. I'm trying to emphasize the fact it looks quite jittery. It was the same on the One. I'm concerned.